Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Frank Botdorf. I'm with EON Reality and I'm Director of Business Development. My main focus areas are the US and Canada. Today we're going to be talking about virtual reality and AR and augmented reality as it applies to the manufacturing industry. And one of the things I wanted to kind of go over before we get started is I plan to go through a little bit of background on AR and VR. I want to give you a little bit of background on EON Reality as a company and then some of our solutions. And then of course I think the more interesting of all is probably talking through some of our case studies and some of the clients we're working with now and historically. To give you an idea of how folks are using this technology, because that seems to be one of the biggest questions. Is there's a lot of buzz about this technology, AR, VR, but what in the end of the day, after you get the wow factor past you, what does this mean? How is this going to improve my business? How is it going to improve my operations? How is it going to save me some money? So hopefully we will provide some insights on that as we go through this program today in this webinar. Also, we are going to be taking questions, and you can jot down questions in the chat box there, and my assistant will then kind of collect all the questions and give us some discussion at the end of this. Now, of course, we've got about 60 or so folks online with us today right now. Maybe a couple more might join as we get further into the webinar. So we may not obviously able to get to individual questions, but hopefully we'll be able to give you some responses to some of them. And again, as my contact information is there, we can certainly get together at a later time and talk more specifics if we don't get to your question or you need further discussions. All right, so let's jump in. VR, AR introduction. One of the things I wanted to throw out kind of in the beginning, because a lot of times when I talk to a lot of folks, I go around the country giving a lot of speeches and conferences, etc. And one of the first things that most people think of when we say VR these days is head-mounted displays, or HMDs. So there's a lot of folks out there that are developing this and building these and manufacturing these headsets and a variety of different ways to achieve VR and AR. Some based on smartphones where you might, such as Google Cardboard, that's been out for quite a few years now. You slide your smartphone in there, and it's kind of reminds me of the old viewfinders. Depending on how old you are, might be showing my age a little bit, but there was a piece of plastic where you had a little disc that had images on it, and when you slid it's I remember getting it when I went to the Grand Canyon, for instance. But anyway, along the lines, but obviously a much more modern, improved, and higher tech version. But then again, there's Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, the HoloLens from Microsoft. So these are all a lot of times when people throw out the term VR and AR, this is immediately what they think of. But one of the things I want to clarify or at least suggest here on this conversation is there's a lot of other ways for users to experience this VR and AR technology. We somewhat have a little bit of a saying within EON that we offer phone-to-dome type solutions. And this is based on something that you've probably got in your pocket right now, that smartphone, all the way through to PC-based systems, to desktop solutions, to interactive mirrors, to mobile iCubes, curved display systems where you're very large, one-to-one type ratio of viewing and interacting, and then even kind of the ultimate being a domed type solution. So there's a lot more to VR and AR than just HMDs. However, certainly they are very prevalent and very low cost, no doubt about it. Another piece as we're talking about AR and VR is, as I have talked to a lot of folks, a lot of people have been asking me, what exactly is MR, meaning mixed reality, and how is that different from VR or AR or 360 video? So there's a lot of, the technology world has enough acronyms, but we're adding to it, it seems like. And it's also adding a little bit of confusion for folks to really get their head around what exactly is this, and then start figuring out, okay, how am I going to be able to make it productive for me? So what I did was I have my own thoughts, and I'll share that in a minute, about mixed reality. But according to Wikipedia, they really look at it or define it as more of a continuum, where on the left side of this fairly simplistic graph, you have the real world or real environments, and then moving towards the right, you have your virtual environments going all the way to completely computer virtual environments. And somewhere in the middle, there's a few hybrids. However, had I not looked up this on Wikipedia, and if someone had asked me what is mixed reality, my definition would have been, it's essentially the same thing as augmented reality, or AR, where you're able to see the real world, but then you're able to augment it with cues and overlays of virtual elements to help you do whatever it is, whether it's a tourism application or manufacturing, helping you figure out how to work on a piece of equipment or whatever. So those are just a few things that I thought I would bring up. And again, 360 video, that's been pretty popular this year. We've done a lot of projects in 360 video, and that really is minimizing the computer animation and the computer graphics aspect, and using, literally video, but using 360 type videos, which gives you that immersive feel that you're in that environment, whatever that environment might be, whether it's a manufacturing floor, on a ski slope, or whatever. So there's a few more limitations probably to 360 video, but certainly that's an option as well. All right, so I'm going to go through what and who EON Reality is, and give you a little bit of background on what we do and how long we've been around. So I guess first and foremost, we specialize in knowledge transfer solutions. And by the way, the technology we use to have those knowledge and offer those knowledge transfer solutions is VR and AR. We have a global presence. These are just some of the key offices. We've been around since 1999. We offer cutting-edge technology, but not bleeding edge. That's probably a saying you may have heard if you're in the IT space. But it's very easily to understand, because we're working with a lot of Fortune 500, Global 1000 type companies and educational institutions. And most of the time, they're not wanting to be guinea pigs. So we need to have proven technology on the leading edge, but not on the bleeding edge. One of the other aspects of EON Reality is we've been around for so long. We've got a lot of key relationships with the hardware manufacturers and even other software manufacturers that are in this space. And I've got another slide that'll get into a little more, but the bottom line is we know what's coming around the corner. We know what's coming down the pipeline. May not be out now. No one might be talking about it, but we have a lot of insights in what's coming down the pipe, so we're able to prepare ourselves and our solutions to make sure we're fitting. As far as some specific stats about EON and our software, we've had over 36 million downloads of our content, over 200,000 licenses distributed, 5,000 authoring software seats, and strong growth even in the kind of the downturn days of 2008, 9, 10. And we've really had strong customer growth throughout that time period. All right, so this is just one example. We've been documented and picked up by quite a few of the media outlets, and since we are the global leader in knowledge transfer, a lot of folks are interviewing us. That's our chairman, Dan Legiskar, right there on the left, being interviewed on Bloomberg. Our CEO has been interviewed by several TV stations. Lots of different media outlets are looking to us to kind of help them make sense of what this VR, AR technology is and does. So that's just a little bit of us puffing our chest out a little bit here on this slide. Getting back to maybe some more practical aspects as far as one of the things that you're going to find about this technology, if you're not that familiar with it, is that there's not one manufacturer, number one. There's not one manufacturer or developer that does it all either. So EON has a software platform, which I'll get into in a few minutes, but this is very, very tied to the way the user is going to experience it, kind of coming back to those head-mounted displays, but also those other large systems, display systems, very immersive systems. And just bottom line is no one company does it all. So we're able to offer turnkey systems from an integrator standpoint. So we're kind of like a niche integrator. And a lot of these folks here that you're seeing on the screen are the major players in the VR AR space. From a market segmentation standpoint, I would say aerospace, defense, and energy historically have been EON's key verticals. However, times have changed a lot since the early days of our company, since we've been around for quite a while. Education vertical, we've probably got more more customers in that space than any other. However, our management team is very focused on education and supporting education, so that is by far not our most profitable vertical. So I bring this up because we're here and you were here to hear about manufacturing, but I think it's helpful to understand some of the other vertical markets that EON has worked in and works in currently. And because a lot of the same problems kind of cross-pollinate, cross over into multiple verticals. So I think, and the way someone might be using it in the transportation industry could be very applicable to the manufacturing or vice versa. So I think it's there's not a one-size-fits-all by any means, and I think we as a company have, because we've got a lot of diverse markets that we cater to, we've got a lot of insights to be able to help you develop the right solution. All right, so from a client standpoint, this is by no means our full list, just as many as we can get on a slide without getting too crazy and getting too small. Most of these names you probably recognize. Most of them are in the manufacturing sector / industry sector. I know I've talked about a few minutes ago about there's a lot more to the VR market than just HMDs. I'm gonna play this video. I think this will be the only video I show you today other than me talking. But this gives you some visuals to understand what EON does and who we are and some of the other solutions that we can offer. All right. Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit more meat on the bone, as I was saying, regarding some of the other types of ways for users to experience this type of technology. So I do think it's helpful to make sure we're all aware of some of the other things, and of course we can get into more details on an offline basis if you'd like. So some of the manufacturing problems, knowledge transfer problems, we've worked with quite a few over the years, and kind of this is not necessarily the full silver bullet extent list of problems, but these are very common problems that we talk to when we're working with clients. First off, I mean, as we probably all know, training is a cost center, so we're always trying to be aware and how to minimize that, but also, you know, we still need high quality. And how do you do that? Complexity, there's usually in a manufacturing process or assembly line process, there's all sorts of equipment, robotic equipment possibly. Processes change rapidly. There's just a continual need for employee education and training. Risk factors, there's a lot of times when hopefully not many devastating things happen like fires or explosions, but those things do happen from time to time, and that's maybe even because of the where we are, that those are very, very rare, and glad they are, but because they're so rare, a lot of people aren't prepared to be effective when some of those kinds of situations occur. And then the hands-on training, most of your situations or scenarios, you probably can't shut down a assembly line or manufacturing line to be able to offer employees training. Likewise, an alternative might be, well, let's buy some of this equipment and have duplicate equipment and then have it dedicated to training. Well, that's a lot of times that's just not practical or too expensive. So, you know, there's lots of reasons and lots of issues and problems. Additionally, quality, the traditional classroom training, as you see this picture here, people are falling asleep, they're bored, you know, going through PowerPoints, looking at regular 2D videos, a lot, you know, that just doesn't quite get the engagement that that's possible and that's needed. And then finally, assessment. There's a lot of times when people can be very smart and go through tests and be great from a kind of a book smart standpoint, but then when they go to push it out into the real world, they just don't have the in-field capabilities or knowledge. So assessment is another key area. So what are our solutions to it? EON offers a AVR solution. This includes a lot of the following: faster learning, using experiential learning, contextual learning, potentially using augmented reality, able to do a lot of dangerous scenarios and obviously make things explode and catch on fire and nobody gets hurt. Engagement, going back to that kind of traditional classroom where people get bored looking at PowerPoints and videos. And we do have a way to collect data on to assess employees and how they're doing, what their strengths are, where they may need to have remedial training, etc. And then we can also feed those back with the AVR solution and platform into LMS systems. So other benefits of the AVR platform are efficiency and productivity, focusing on development R&D on your unique value add, customizable and branded solutions so that it looks like this is something that you guys have and continues to and reinforce the company brand. From a hardware standpoint, we are EON. If it's a major player out there, we're very agnostic, so we work with most of the big names out there. Of course, if you've got a brother-in-law or cousin that's working in the garage and coming up with some type of new headset or something, I mean, I can't promise you we can support that, but if it's a mainstream product, we can definitely feel confident in saying that we will support it, or already do, and most likely already do, and have been working on it with quite a while. And again, fast implementation. This is something that we can do. The AVR platform is there's a lot of pieces and parts, and I'll get to a slide here in a second, but even though they're still fairly quick to implement, and that's something that's obviously important to get your return on investment as well. The AVR solution offers easy to use, so we can develop, run, manage applications for you using the platform. It's for the most part off the shelf. There's obviously a lot of customization, but there's still the off-the-shelf core platform. It's an end-to-end solution and very cost efficient, providing an annual license so that you're not having to do a bunch of upfront expenses. You can spread that cost over time as you need it and as you use it. So these are, I've mentioned the AVR platform. What is it? What are the components of it? I'm going to spend a few minutes on this. I'm not going to get into the infinite details. I think that's more appropriate for a follow-up conversation if it's of interest to you. But that tagline there, I think really, if I had to sum it up, that's really that really explains it best. The AVR platform helps you develop, run, manage, access, store, host, and distribute AVR applications. So some of the base modules that come with it are the Experience AR, VR, and mobile, which also includes 360 videos and 3D content. We do have a fairly easy to use creation tool for more simplistic content. We have a library that you can use to develop the content yourself if that is of interest to you. We have a multi-user functionality called EON Coliseum that's extremely beneficial for team-based training. We also can deliver it so that it can look like yours, and again reinforce that brand, that company brand, and also offer it as a hosted solution so that there's not a lot of hardware and infrastructure costs associated to that. Now we do have some additional modules, and again I'm not going to go through all of these to the nth degree, but we do offer content creation services. There's a variety of assessment and geolocation solutions, LMS links, CMS link to be able to create that visual appearance and look as you like, artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of other, and then even integration into not just LMS systems, but even SAP, Oracle type systems, ERP type systems as well. Be happy to get into more conversation with you on these as they apply to your needs. So what have the studies shown regarding AR, VR? And this is some data that we've had access to via Atlas Copco, which is one of our longtime clients. They've had a couple different, we had multiple projects with them, but one project was using service technicians in training. The other was operator training, and as you can see, there's slightly different numbers for each type of training, but the bottom line is it was much faster and saved them a ton of money compared to traditional type training. One of the quotes from one of our clients, ExxonMobil, we've had, I don't know how many projects, probably 60 different projects over the years, but their industry, the oil and gas industry, may be experiencing similar things that you are experiencing, in that there's a big bubble of employees, the baby boomers, that are starting to fade into retirement, and so there's a kind of a vacuum of qualified and experienced employees. So what they're doing is using VR. One of the main instigators is to use VR so that they can get 15 years of in-field experience, but only in a compressed time of 3 years. So I think that really shows and talks a lot about VR and AR and its applicability. This is an interesting kind of getting away from the training side of things and more on the product lifecycle management of the manufacturing process as well as the products. But as you can see here, 70% of products lifecycle cost is kind of locked in on the front end. So, which is really in the concept phase, very early in the stage. So once you get further than that, it starts getting very costly to try to change directions. And kind of following into that is this following slide here. Excuse me. Under product development, I was actually up, if you're familiar with Rock Island Arsenal, there in Illinois, right near Davenport, Iowa. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. Joe Kleiss is a gentleman that works for ARDEC, ARDEC, which is a Army Armament Research and Development Engineering Center, which is located on at Rock Island. Now, Joe, I think, if I understand correctly, has retired, but the folks that I met with were in the same group. And Joe had kind of, I don't know that he was the pioneer of this terminology necessarily, but immersive engineering process, IEP. And this quote here kind of sums it up, I guess you could say. Communication between various groups, subcontractors, engineering teams don't always work well. About being able to bring everybody together in immersive reviews and immersive environments as the product moves from initial stages to full-scale production, we're able to troubleshoot and find things and find problems before we get too far down the road. And based on his experience, and of course these are military type projects, so they're fairly high budgets, but based on 10 projects, they were able to cut schedule time from 6 years to 2.2 years, and we're able to have a cost savings of 1.1 million per project. And actually he has written a kind of a paper, I guess you could say. It's called Virtual Reality in Six Sigma, a Manufacturer's Dream. It's located at that website there. But it's interesting. You don't think of VR and virtual reality and Six Sigma being in the same sentence, but he was able to be insightful enough to figure how the two could mesh together. All right, so moving on. Again, these are kind of some of the more fun aspects in my mind, because you're able to, maybe these aren't exactly the problems or situations that you're running into, but certainly, hopefully, this will give you some ideas of how people are currently using this technology, and then maybe some light bulbs might go off as to how you might be able to use them as well. And of course, we're here to help you as well. So GE, we've had quite a few projects with GE over the years. GE has a new product called the Predix, which is a predictive maintenance repair operations solution. And one of the areas was in the oil and gas industry in subsea maintenance of pipelines that are running underneath the sea. Obviously, we don't see them, but there's quite a few out there and there. So we were able to help them develop this system to improve their operations, supporting their field, increase their quality assurance, reduce their training costs significantly, be able to roll this system out and solution out much quicker, and again, I actually offered some self-study capabilities. So that's just one example with GE. We've got quite a few others. With ExxonMobil, we developed what they refer to as Operator Training Simulator, or OTS, and this was, there's some stats here on what all it was included, but basically 300 pieces of equipment, field operations, lots of different training scenarios, a big library of content, and the last bullet there, linked to Dynamic Process Simulator. We actually tied a VR solution into their control room simulator. So in other words, they're able to have team-based training, which is a very interesting way to apply this. And of course, because VR has some of that gaming aspect to it, you're able to have multiple users interacting in on the same environment. So I think that's a really unique way of utilizing this technology, and I think we're going to see more and more of it, and we already are from a company standpoint. And just to kind of share this final thought on this particular solution that we worked with Exxon, we developed it with them, and then we see a real need and use for this to be applied to other industries. And so we've actually turned around and licensed it back from ExxonMobil to be able to offer to other clients. So that's kind of an interesting way that we were kind of the vendor that helped create this solution for them, and now there's a market to potentially replicate it in other industries. So it's kind of interesting how it kind of turned around, that we're now partners as well as you know, kind of the client-vendor relationship. Atlas Copco, they're a large pipe fitting variety of compressors and all sorts of different related types of devices, and a big part of their problem was they've got a big sales force, and there's a lot of configuration requirements, and there's a ton of products. So how are they going to be able to, you know, continue being efficient in their sales processes? And so we developed something called the AirNet Planner, and bottom line is the solution shortened their sales cycle, offered a visual configuration so their sales folks can talk and walk through configuring a solution with their clients kind of on the fly, if you will. And then as a result, it's been being used by over 3,000 sales representatives. They've been using it since 2009, and we've had quite a few different revisions of that application since then, but it's been a great success. Festo, if you're familiar with that name, Festo is a very large company, German-based company. They have their hands in quite a few different industries. This particular application was in virtual wastewater management. And the bottom line is water is obviously critical to every living human thing, and I think we a lot of times take for granted what it takes to offer clean drinking water, and the UN has made some goals of having safe drinking water for all people on Earth by 2030. And of course, again, we probably take for granted that when we turn on the faucet, it's water and there's no big deal and we don't think about it. But in a lot of places in the world, there's still issues. Well, because of that, there's a lot of kind of backlog of qualified personnel. And one of the kind of the added complexity to this is that water treatment includes a lot of different domain areas, including chemistry, biology, physics, engineering. So there's a lot of talent and background needed for that type of proficiency in this area. So we were able to help them develop a virtual reality wastewater simulator. In this particular instance, we had it offered in a Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, so it was very low cost, using just a fairly small price computer and headset. We're talking $3,500, $4,500, something like that. It offers them that holistic training, again, being able to combine in the mechanics, electrics, chemistry, biology, all into one big picture for folks to better understand. And then it was scalable and offered that hands-on training that's so needed and so difficult to be able to offer. ExxonMobil, this is a totally different project from the previous one that I mentioned. This was a particular procedure, a gas turbine water wash procedure. Now, we were under some NDAs, so of course we can't get into a lot of the guts of this particular process and procedure and simulation, but this is a couple of screenshots of this one and the next one. At a very high level, we have a focused area, safety concerns, administrative issues, and then get into the nuts and bolts of the procedure. And then once you go into the procedure, there's another kind of level of requirements, the various tools and materials that you need to go through this process and procedure. We offer a full soup to nuts full procedure so that you can view it, and then we can break it down step by step, and then provide a learning, checking, and quizzing type scenario. So that's just another example of a specific project. Regarding the aerospace industry, the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore had quite a bit of challenges. Number one is access to aircraft, because one of the main things they're trying to do is have safety walk-arounds and a variety of other maintenance type procedures. And the bottom line is they just don't have access to the physical aircrafts that they need. So they wanted to reduce the need for that by 70%. Also, but they still want to have, at the same time, they wanted to have improved efficiency. There's also a wide variety of aircraft that they would, typically need for any given scenarios, and they just don't have access to a wide range of aircraft. And then, of course, being able to have a lot of different scenarios that come up. In real life, you're fairly limited as far as what you can do. Again, kind of going back to that example of making things explode or catch on fire, etc. So what we were able to do is offer, we worked together with them, with subject matter experts, developed a virtual and reality pre-flight and maintenance simulator. In this case, we used a cave environment, or iCube, which was 5 wall, very immersive. You walk into it, you're have motion tracking, you're able to bend down and look up, etc. The benefits were reduction in costs without quality. We were able to have a lot of different scenarios to offer the trainees for those pre-flight checks and maintenance that mimic the real life, but maybe sometimes are hard to create in real life. And the bottom line is, safety is key and critical in any kind of flight-oriented and aerospace type projects. So they've seen a significant improvement in lower costs. And one of the final ones that I wanted to mention is UNIDO. This is a part of the United Nations, kind of a sub aspect or department of the United Nations. But we went in together to develop a pilot project initially, and then we've moved into other training simulations. But it was for diesel engine operation, and this was for developed in Ethiopia. All right, so I'm going to start winding down here a little bit, but wanted to give you, because we're getting quite a few questions, but I wanted to wrap up a couple more items before we do. Why now? What are some of the industry trends? So billions are being invested in this technology, VR and AR. I mean, I think Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg there, he kind of rattled a lot of cages and a lot of people when he spent $2 billion on Oculus Rift, and that's billion. And at the time, Oculus had never even had a formal product. It was really just what they refer to as like a development kit. But certainly there are a lot of other industry players: Samsung, Google, Microsoft, Sony, Apple, all big companies that are coming out with a variety of different, mainly hardware technologies. So from a standpoint of industry, what's happening in the industry and some of the media coverage, there's all sorts of different media coverage. There's this particular VR is not just for video games. That's actually was the name or title of one article. Don't remember which one, but there's been several that kind of have insinuated a similar situation. And one of the things, if you notice there, within the next 10 years, smart glasses will outsell smartphones, and that's based on a study from Gartner, which today as we sit, that might be hard to believe, but I think the smart glasses and the AR technology is coming, and coming with is going to be upon us very, very soon. One of the other things that I haven't actually mentioned yet was, this pie graph is a snapshot of the current industry as it is today. One of the things when you think of VR and AR, you think of not just those head-mounted displays that like I had suggested, but also video games. And no doubt about it, today video games are the big application, but there's quite a few others, and I think we're going to see that video gaming is going to become less and less, and these other industries and applications are going to become bigger and bigger. And this kind of rolls right into the next screen, or next slide I have here. This was a study Goldman Sachs came out with earlier this year that basically said that the VR market from a investment standpoint is going to be in the neighborhood of $80 billion for the next few years. And actually, they came out with this report in probably springtime of this past year in 2016. They came out with a revised version of that later in the year, even upticking it another 15 billion, so it's around 95 billion. And I know when you start throwing around billions and millions and trillions, it's hard to kind of keep up and get your head around what exactly that means. Just to give you some context, the $80 billion is roughly what the current PC desktop market is today in annual sales. So bottom line is VR is expected to be right at the same volume in sales and revenues as the standard desktop PC market is, and now, according to them, even better. But one of the more interesting outcomes of their study was 85% of VR AR growth will come from non-gaming sources. So I think that's really, that's you guys, that's the people that are listening to me today. That's where that's going to be coming from. So I think you're in good company. Also, not that investment banking and these kind of folks are necessarily the soothsayers that know exactly what's going to happen, but they're approaching this as where to invest money and where to invest their clients' money. And so I think this says a lot that this is not just a passing fad that's going to kind of come and go. There's another study or another recent similar article, Citibank. Their projections are much further out into the future to 2035, I think it is, but they're expecting it to be over $1 trillion industry. So and again, that's Citibank. I don't have that slide, but that's another one. Here's another one from DigiCap or DigiCapital. They're suggesting by 2020 it's going to be in the neighborhood of 150 billion. So who knows what the real numbers will work out to be, but I think there's a lot of consistency in that it's going to be big, and we're seeing it already. So a lot of questions when I'm talking to folks, they're asking, okay, so you've told me what's happening, you've gone through some case studies, that's great, that's helpful, but where is this all going? So this is what the next couple of slides will provide some insights, and of course we just saw some projections of revenues and those kind of things from some of these investment banking companies, but from a practical standpoint, what's to come in the future. And I think this is a really nice slide that shows augmented reality in the middle there. And actually, if I go back just to this one, this chart actually separates out augmented reality and virtual reality. And as you see in 2017, they're roughly the same size and roughly $20 billion or so. And then as we go through time, augmented reality gets a bigger chunk of the pie there, or of the column there. And I think EON would agree, and our executive team would agree that that's a fairly. I don't know that it's quite that dramatic, but I think virtual reality is going to be in maybe a little bigger myself, but certainly we're probably very close in thinking the same thing. So coming back to this slide, augmented reality is going to be kind of at the center of a lot of technologies that are coming together. I don't know if you've heard of the term Internet of Things. That kind of refers to just about almost every gadget and piece of equipment is going to be connected to the internet somehow, some way. Just a simple example would be light bulbs. I mean, there are smart light bulbs now that literally you can turn on and turn off with your smartphone, and they're connected to your Wi-Fi, and you can turn them on, turn them off when you're on travel, whatever. So, I mean, that's just a simple example. Cloud computing, that's been around for a while now. And then artificial intelligence, that's becoming better and better and bigger aspect. So I think basically AR is going to link man and machine together. And I think that's something that we're going to be seeing, and it's sooner than later. And it's going to be surprising, I think, to quite a few folks. And this is another picture, this particular screen, or this picture here, showing potentially a worker maybe in an assembly line production of some sort using his AR glasses and seeing some context of what he needs to do and where he needs to go, etc. On this same screen there, on the bottom left there, there's a couple of interesting statistics. 2.5 billion workers are not supported by IT today. And then if we break that down further, in the manufacturing sector, which is the 4th largest industry, period, they spend less than 2% of revenue on IT. Likewise, construction, which is an $8 trillion market, spends less than 1%. So I think the bottom line is I think we're going to be seeing a lot more folks like yourselves getting into this. And if you're tuned into this webinar, you probably have an idea that there's something here, and you're just trying to connect the dots of how to make that work, and we'll be happy to help you there. So kind of wrapping up now, EON has, we've been around for a long time, since about 18 years now. We've had quite a few projects, clients, Fortune 1000 type companies over the years. We've been around, we've seen the ups and downs of the industry possibly, but the last 2 years, probably 3 years, have been the biggest that we've seen as far as activity goes. And based on a lot of these projects we're working on, we're starting to almost kind of look at ourselves as kind of experts and consultants in this area. And I'm not an expert myself in this Bloom's taxonomy, but there's different degrees and ways to the learning process happens based on the knowledge dimension and the cognitive process dimension. And when it's all said and done, the critical skills such as exploring or diagnosing or collaborating or planning and configuring, all those types of things are where VR and AR and the knowledge transfer is going to come into play. You've got something in your pocket right now. If you just wanted to pull up statistics or facts, you can pull your smartphone out and say Google or Siri and come up with just about any fact or figure that you want. And I know my wife and I do that all the time when we're watching a movie or doing something. Yeah, that actor was in some other movie. What was that? Or just whatever. So the facts and remembering aspect are going to be replaced by technology, and is replaced by technology. But these critical skills are something that need to be developed further and further. And VR and AR we see as that solution. So I've had an assistant that's been helping me with this webinar, kind of collecting the questions as we've gone along. And as I think I mentioned, we've got about 60 folks online right now. So we've got a fair amount of questions, but she's kind of putting them into categories. And one of the ones, she knew I was coming up with this slide. She was saying, how do we get started? How do you go about? I mean, that's kind of the gist of several questions from you folks. So this is going to help you maybe kind of walk through the process, if you will, very high level, but still give you an idea of what to expect. First off, I would say a VR experience or simulation module is very similar to creating a movie or a video. So you kind of go through the same process in a lot of respects. We would storyboard it out. We would identify what the goals are, identify where this is going to happen, the environment we're in. Is it in a manufacturing setting? Is it an office space? You know, whatever. We're going to identify and scope out the overall complexity. How will the user experience this VR content? Again, we've talked about a lot of different technologies and hardware devices for users to experience this. What kind of quality you're looking for. You know, there's lots of different grades of quality, anywhere from kind of more on the cartoonish side to very high-end, very photorealistic. And guess what? The photorealistic stuff is going to require a lot more time and effort, and that equates to cost. What kind of sound and audio do you want? Do you need a professional narrator to go through it? Do you want to have very, you know, environmental sounds, like if this is in a manufacturing floor? Do you want to have the common noises and background noise that you would hear in a manufacturing setting? I mean, of course, this is all to make the user feel like they're more in that environment and more immersed, to make it all sink in better. What we would do is go through what digital assets do you have now, based on, you know, what kind of PowerPoint slides do you have to go through your training? What kind of videos do you have? Do you have 3D models of particular pieces of equipment that you want to work on? All of these are the kind of things that we need to capture and get in order to help, you know, you give an idea of what you're getting into from a cost standpoint, scoping it out. And then finally, how do you want to deploy it? How do you want to track the students? How do you want to assess them? That's all part of the AVR platform. That's part of what you get when we work with us. And we figured all that out, so there's not a lot of you know, excess work on that side of things, but those are all optional, and we need to figure out how we want to approach all that. So hopefully that'll give you, and that answers one of the questions that we have. So kind of in summary, I think this is, the door's open. We're opening the door for you. We're here to help you and work with you. If you feel, based on this discussion and presentation, that you want to find out more about VR and AR, I think you know, as the slide says here, the revolution is here. This is not some fad that's kind of passing. The timing is right, because, you know, early on in EON's history as a company, this technology was fairly expensive. So now it's moved into much more affordable. Obviously, technology has come a long ways, much more realistic when you go through these simulations. So hopefully we've been able to help you a little bit. I've got time for maybe one or two other questions. And my assistant is telling me we've had a lot of people asking, sounds great, Frank, but what's the cost? And of course, that's always a consideration. And, you know, it's always a difficult question to answer, because, you know, we've got to go through this process. We've got to go through this process to really get an idea of what is you're trying to do, how complex is it, how much interaction is it, you know, all those things to come up with a bottom line number. Since that's not really answering the question, I'll try to get a little more specific. You know, I would say you can start, the starting point would be probably in the $25,000 to $30,000 range, and then we can go from there. And it really can go from there, and even up to, you know, $500,000 to $1 million, and of course, depending on what other systems and how you deploy it, and what other integration aspects there are. If you want to get into integrate into SAP and Oracle, those kind of ERP systems, you know, we're talking about a much more enterprise solution, which is going to be more involved. So, but hopefully that'll at least give you kind of an idea, bigger than a bread box, of what you're getting into. And finally, kind of related to all of this, is the how long does it take? And that's a great question. Again, it's going to vary, and we got to scope it out, like I've been talking. But how long it takes is really, I would say, on a fairly straightforward project, you know, 90 days, and it certainly can be longer than that, but I think that's a good starting point, 90 days. We typically start with kind of a proof of concept. So we stick a stake in the ground, and let's identify what your key areas that you're trying to accomplish. We usually try to focus on or suggest focus on some areas that are kind of easy wins, if you will, but will have a fairly wide impact. And then from there we can then start to developing more formalized programs and then getting into an enterprise-wide distribution and solution. So at this point, I think we've kind of used up the time that we have today. I hope this has been helpful for you. You see my contact information there. If you by chance have a QR code reader on your smartphone, you can go ahead and point it up to your display and hit that QR code and add me to your contacts. I'll be happy to talk to you more. Certainly you can contact our marketing department that helped you set up attending this webinar. But bottom line is we look forward to working with you. Hopefully this has been helpful, and have a great day. Thanks.